al-Bashir could not be toppled by these civilians. So the army took opportunity to remove him from power, and then and established themselves as the de facto government of Sudan. Now the civilians said, look, we are tired, we're fed up with military administration. We want a return to democracy. And so what we should all agree is that your regime will be a transitional regime. Initially, the government of the Sudan under the Sudanese armed forces was largely constituted by military men. But when the civilians agitated and said they will also rise up against the government contained them. And there was an agreement. They themselves violated the agreement. When the time came for them to start implementing the transitional arrangement to ensure that Sudan returns to constitutional rule, they defaulted and then took over again. So there was another coup, if you want, a palace coup, to remove the civilians from. But as everybody knows, in war, it's the people who suffer. And the Sudan has recorded a lot of civilian deaths. Children and women are the casualties. Both the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces have been accused of human rights violations. Right. In fact, the reports have it that they are both sides have committed crimes against humanity. The indiscriminate bombing. I mean, just 2 days ago, when the presidential palace was taken, or this week when the presidential palace was taken, the rapid support group launched another attack on the Khartoum and killed a lot of civilians. And just yesterday, the Sudanese army is alleged to have also bombed a market in Darfur and killed, because they are alleged because the bombing occurred by reason of military, the military aircrafts, the involvement of military aircrafts, and then the general view is that the rapid support forces don't have access to military aircraft, and it's only the army. So if the bombing was orchestrated by the use of military aircrafts, it could only be there, even though the armed forces, the Sudanese armed forces, have denied any involvement in the bombing of Darfur. But that goes to show that in war, the civilians, and this was a market. This was a market. I mean, the people were not fighting any war. But that's Darfur. Darfur is the stronghold of the rapid support forces. So now, so the people suffer. There's poverty, diseases around. The UNHCR cannot get into Darfur because of the possible effect of the war on their personnel, and gradually the war in Sudan is becoming a proxy war. The Egyptians and other countries that don't want the Janjaweed, that is the rapid support forces, are supporting the Sudanese army against the rapid support forces. And then it is alleged that Qatar, which is gradually playing a role in international
mediation.
No mediation. On the international plane, is alleged to be supporting the rapid support forces through Chad, and this is largely because it is alleged that the Sudanese armed forces contain elements of radical Islamists, and they are afraid that if the government comes to be, it will export that radicalism to their country. So they are fighting to ensure that they don't come to power. So there is now become almost a proxy war, and other countries within the region and outside the region are supporting the various factions to fight the war. And so I think that again is another demonstration of egos, the egos of people like in Southern Sudan, Riek Machar, Salva Kiir, not being able to reconcile their egos and then get the country to move forward. This is what is happening. Also, 2 soldiers, 2 brigadiers were unable to see eye to eye to solve the problem of Sudan, and the people are suffering as a result of their personal idiosyncratic opinions and positions of who, opinions of who should be in power and who should be subservient to who. So clearly, we have got a long way to go as an African, as Africans, in ensuring that we get our acts together.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. London. Good morning.
Morning.
I love your black batakari. The last time I attempted buying one, I bought it anyway when we were on the campaign. When I got to the house, I noticed that it was extremely big.
You didn't try it.
I just love black batakari. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Yeah.
Good morning to you.
Yes, sir.
We still have not met our friend though. Your friend. No, I can't disclose. I can't give you full disclosure.
Okay, that's fine.
But our friend, the one that you wanted to introduce me to.
Okay.
So this is a gentle reminder. Anyway, let's start on Sudan briefly, and then we'll look at the Ghanaian market. Because you see, I'm itching. There's a lot of meat in the pot. So when you're done with Sudan, and then we can.
Yes.
Oh no, I love your material.
Yeah.
This one can dress.
You talked initially about Batakari.
Yeah.
I'm wearing this was this morning. You know, my good friend,
Dr. Percy.
Yes.
I'll be going there. And I thought I'd wear Batakari. And you see, Batakari, when I'm wearing it, I take my time. I don't want problem. So I don't even wear the hats. You wear the hats?
Left or right? You'll be crawling for war.
So
when you pull it forward, it has a meaning. When you pull it backwards, left and right.
So because
Honorable is a priest, so that's why it's
so when he's wearing that one, so we have to accept. But me, I should wear dry.
I have a lot of them in the house. I don't wear them anymore. The last time I won one on the show, somebody said, Kwame, why? They're calling for war.
Anyway, that's on the night. Yes, this Sudan situation is very, very unfortunate. And you see, what even distresses me most is that when you see the television footages of the troubles, Sudan is a very poor African country. Very poor. They have limited much of their national development to their capital, Khartoum. And if you look at the development in Khartoum, the type of buildings, the road infrastructure, and these people are busily bombing themselves away. It is most unfortunate. Now, I did some small researches some time ago. And what I was beginning to gather was that this trouble actually started after the Sudanese government gave some indication that they were going to open or allow the Russians to have some kind of a base there. And prior to that, the U.S. ambassador had been sent away or something. The U.S. ambassador came back. Now, when the U.S. ambassador came back, or a new ambassador was appointed or whatever, soon afterwards, these troubles started. And one of the claims of the Rapid Response Forces is that the government was going in a particular, without mentioning names, or without giving too much detail. The suggestion was that maybe the government was taking certain decisions that they were not happy with. I feel that these people may have been incited by some larger geopolitical interests. So they come and they see that there's a problem between this man and this man. Why don't we encourage this man to start fighting this man so that he takes care of our interests, and then that's how. So this is one of the lessons I gathered. As to how accurate it is, I cannot say. But this is, and the facts on the ground seem to portend to that. And as a consequence, this war has been raging and raging. And it appears that towards the end of last year, the rapid response forces were making serious gains. Now suddenly it appears like their progress is not as
before.
As before.
It's only them actually. They are not getting USAID.
You said it, why did you say it?
But don't found out that most of these grants and loans and things like that, they're just being used to sponsor these people.
You see, and this is a sad thing about Africa. These people, we are sitting down somewhere quietly, and these people, for their own parochial interests, come and instigate us to start fighting each other, killing each other for their interests, because somebody doesn't want his enemy to open a base in your country, so therefore he goes and incites others to. What is this? Then they will quietly suggest to somebody that, look, we are giving you military aid, so if you don't support these people, your aid won't come. So they are giving the aid, and some of it is being funneled through them. And that is the problem of Africa. And we are just, and look at, and when you look at some of the areas that are being, the people are being killed, look at their level of their economic situation. These are people who are in poverty. And military people are killing, soldiers are killing them. What have they got to do with the problem? What have they got to do with the problem? If Russia wants to set up a base, that poor man in that village 100 kilometers from Khartoum, what does that have to do with it? So it is most unfortunate, and I hope that Africans must have a better realization and so that true.
Yeah,
I'm tired. I hope that in our military academies and these things are also taught.
Yesterday I was in a conversation with our mutual friend YB, and he was telling me about how crazy it was during the revolutionary days, and he has always been praying that we will not get to the point where people, especially the Gen Zs, will experience, because it's quite, it's serious, really.
Yes.
The ordeals that people have to go through.
You see, and that is what is sad.
Even in Kumasi those days, when you're working, you have to raise your hands, because otherwise you'll be shot.
Well, that would be extreme. There were instances like that. Yes, it wasn't just in Kumasi. There were instances at various areas. I remember once. I don't want to go into some of my personal experiences. That's why I was so.
It's good to say these are some of the things, so you won't say it so that we will learn.
Look.
You won't say that we will learn.
I used to live in Kanda Estate. And I go jogging in the mornings. One morning I went jogging, coming back, I was in my tracksuit with a t-shirt, and some soldiers stopped me. It was only by the grace of God. People were shot because they were suspected to be dissidents, either trying to do some reconnaissance around the GBC area, or we went through a lot, you see. And like I often tell you, other countries like Sierra Leone went through hell.
Even Liberia.
Hell.
Congo is still going through hell after all these years.
Hell. And look at Congo. I mean, the situation in Congo, people are fighting over their resources, and it's the people who are. Congo is one country that is in a position to feed and power almost the entire African continent.
Yeah.
Yet that small tiny Belgium, using the worst human treatment, brought the Congolese people to the barest, to the lowest of the low, just to keep them divided, keep them, and then have control over their resources. These are the things that as Africans we must, we must reject. We must be conscious of and reject. You know, that's why and I think it starts with appreciating that. Look, we may have our political differences, we may have whatever differences, but it doesn't change us as persons. It doesn't change us as persons. We are persons. We are neighbors. We are friends. We are schoolmates. We are colleagues. We are relatives. We are in-laws. We are, So whatever it is, let us, sort out our issues. And that's why I'm happy that as the Mama is trying to do, make a conscious effort to do a reset. Put this agenda on the table for it to be, because it's something that we must face and tackle. You see, and move away from that pure partisan thinking whereby once somebody is identified on one side, then the other person automatically no, that is backward and retrogressive. So I think the situation of Sudan is something that we must be conscious of, because when there's trouble lurking in your backyard, people can always take advantage. Right. We are concerned about the way Galamsey is going. I saw a video of a funeral and the way people were firing weapons in the air, and I'm sure they're all illegal weapons.
Yeah.
They have that amount of weaponry and they can show it in public like that. Somebody who wants to cause confusion can just go inside them, go and motivate them and start causing confusion. That's how it starts. So we must nip these things in the bud, and there must be a certain conscientization and realization. You see? Otherwise,
all right, thank you very much. Let's come back home to Ghana and discuss some other very important issues here. One of such, I think, has made impact, if you like, on all the front pages of the newspapers we have this morning, is the petition, three petitions actually, which have been sent to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for the removal of the number one officer of the court, the Chief Justice and Leadership, Tokono. I have no idea as to the content of the petition, but I think if it is from Professor Kweku Azar, then I may have an idea of what his claims may be. But Honorable, questions have been raised about continuity in terms of people who are occupying some very sensitive independent positions in this country. The fact that oftentimes when power changes hands, then all those agencies or institutions which are supposed to be independent are being attacked, if you like, for want of a better expression, by the administration that is in power. The danger is that if we are not careful, we'll continue this cyclical, I describe it as cyclical derailment in terms of progress that we've made relative to appointments, relative to allowing people to operate independently without any political interferences, etc. Do you subscribe to that assertion, or you think that in furtherance of any government political, or rather any government policy direction, or in furtherance of a government being able to execute their promise to the good people of Ghana, they have to take some of these decisions? The floor is yours, sir.
So let's start on the note that it is not part of the NDC manifesto promises to remove the Chief Justice. It's not part. There's nowhere in the manifesto of an NDC that the party has said that when it comes into power, it will remove the Chief Justice. No. I agree with you that democracy thrives when there's stability, when the institutions of the democratic institutions of states are solidified, and so there can be predictability, there can be consistency. So and these institutions, many professional institutions, is the experience and maturity of those who occupy those institutions that lend it that credence and acceptability that they are performing, or they will perform to the expectation of the people of this country. So yes, it's good that the institutions of state are solidified, are stable. For the judiciary particularly, the foundation upon which our judiciary is built is the independence of the judiciary. And you know that Lord Atkin has said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So how do we have absolute power? When you vest all the arms of government in one person. That person then has absolute power. And that is why we have the principle of separation of powers. So the other leg on which the judiciary as an institution stands is on the principle of separation of powers. That the Constitution vests the judicial authority of state in the judiciary, Article 125. So clearly it's just like it vests the legislative authority of state in parliament, and it vests executive authority of state in the president. So the two legs, independence and separation of powers. But we also know that the people who we appoint judges are human beings. They will have failings, and they can do things that arouse the eye. I mean the eye of the people. I mean, they make people annoyed, and they make people question why they are behaving that way, and they make people perceive them as being partisan and not neutral, and they make people perceive them as being under the thumb of the executive. So they can also be that. Now, so as a country, we have gone through a history of how do we deal with the judiciary. So when you look at the 1969 Constituent Assembly report, the country took a decision to move away from the British way or UK way of removing a justice or a judge. In the UK system, to remove a judge, you need to address the House of Parliament, by the representative of government, the Prime Minister, and somebody can come and then say, look, this is what is happening, and we think that we must remove this judge because he's no longer performing his duties in accordance with the oath of office that he swore. And then that is put to a vote. And then if they vote the justice out, the judge out, that's it. In the American system, the judge is removed by impeachment. You have heard Trump threaten that one of the judge who reversed or attempted to reverse his order of deportation should be impeached. That's how they remove their judges. But in 1969, we had said that we should also chart our own course. Right. So for us to remove a judge, there must be a petition, and that petition must be founded on three things. One, stated misbehavior. Stated misbehavior. There is a judge or justice of the Superior Court sitting and acting as justice of the Superior Court, mount a political platform to campaign for a political party. It's stated misbehavior. Is there evidence that a case has come before that judge or justice of the Superior Court of Judicial, and that justice has demanded and received money? So stated misbehavior. Or has somebody willingly, in the case of an Adas Arabia or Nas, bribed a justice of the Superior Court of Judicial with goats? It's stated misbehavior. Okay, so that's one grounds on which you can remove a justice of the Superior Court. The second is incompetence. So you're a judge, so you're supposed to write judgments. Okay, so and your judgments, you don't write them, or you unnecessarily delay in writing those judgments. And so it's incompetence. I mean, you are supposed to write judgments when matters are heard, when matters come before you, and you sit on those matters. You must deliver a judgment. And if you are unable to deliver a judgment, or if your judgment is such that is so porous that it cannot be justified on any legal precept, then you are incompetent. Or in the case of the Chief Justice, he's not only a judge, she's also an administrator. Okay, so if, and you remember Nkrumah sacked the Chief Justice, you know that, not because of the fact that that Chief Justice was a judge, but as an administrator. Okay, so if you are an administrator and you cannot perform your duties very well as an administrator, and the court is steeped in confusion, you can be removed as a justice of the Chief Justice. And in Ghana, subsequent constitutions have lumped the administrative function and the judicial function of the Chief Justice together. Now, the third one on which to remove a Chief Justice is on grounds of infirmity of body or mind. So the person is so sick or afflicted with disease that that fellow cannot perform. It's not that he's incompetent or it's not any stated misbehavior, but his physical condition will not permit that person to come, and you have reasons to believe that the physical condition of that person will not permit that person to. So these are the grounds. And how do we remove the Chief Justice? It's by a petition. It's setting the grounds. It's by a petition. Or any justice of the Superior Court of Adjudication. It's by petition. It's by petition. And Article 146 of the Constitution says it clearly.
Right.
So there have been a lot of judicial decisions in courts on that. Even though none of those decisions have resulted in the removal of the Chief Justice. But there have been a plethora. Bilson and Apollo, GBC and Attorney General. I mean, Frank Aji Chum against the Attorney General and Batakwiti. There are many decisions of the court on the removal of the Chief Justice. Okay, some of the decisions even contain preliminary objections, because while they were you file a petition and the Chief Justice the committee has not yet been set up to inquire into the grounds on which you say the Chief Justice will be removed, and you are saying that the Chief Justice should not empanel the court, because so there are a lot of such, and you know, as a lawyer, a lot of such petitions have come. Now when those petitions come, because the President, Article 58 of the Constitution vests executive authority in the President, and it's the President who appoints the judges. Okay, so the petition should be sent to the President. Now the President has absolutely nothing to do with the petition. He cannot take a decision on the petition. If he takes a decision, he will flout the principles of separation of powers. He cannot. And that's why I faulted Nana Adonanko Akufo-Addo when a day prior to his leaving office, he decided to sit on the Kuku Azar petition and ruled that petition lacked merit. I have said, and I will say it on this your platform, but I think that the President in that instance arrogated to himself the powers given to the Council of State to determine whether there is a prima facie case for the removal of a Chief Justice. So when a petition is sent to the President just acts as a conveyor belt. I've received these petitions, and I'm passing them over to you under Article 146 of the Constitution, Article 146 of the Constitution, for the establishment of a committee to look into those petitions. Now in Article 146, you don't see the words prima facie. You don't see those words there. So people have said, oh, when the president submits the application, I mean the petitions to a council of state, the council of state will set up a committee. No. Before Article 146, Article 146 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which deals with the removal of justices of the Superior Court of Judicature. When such a petition is submitted to the president and the president submits the petition to a chief justice, the chief justice in establishing a committee has to, before establishing a committee, has to determine whether there's a prima facie evidence. So you see that in the removal of Charlotte Osei, and I cite Charlotte Osei as an example because the electoral commissioner's appointment and status is coterminous to that of a court of appeal judge. A court of appeal judge is a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature. So when the petition was submitted for the removal to the president for the removal of the electoral commissioner Charlotte Osei, the president forwarded it to the chief justice. The chief justice established that there was a prima facie case and a committee was set up. So because the chief justice is a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, that rule that a prima facie case must be established must also accord or accompany any petition that is sent to the chief justice. If not, it will infringe provisions of the constitution. So the council of state, and that is why the constitution review committee, that thing came to them, came to their attention, and they said that one must necessarily read into Article 1466 the requirement of the establishment of a prima facie case. But for the abundance of caution, if we are to amend the constitution, we should insert in the constitution the requirement of prima facie.
But how do you establish a prima facie case?
When you look at the issues, will it warrant a person, a respondent to open a defense? Will it warrant? I mean, it's just like court in the criminal case when the prosecution have closed their case, and then a submission of no case has been made. You have to, and what is the submission of no case? You are saying that
you've not been able to prove each and every element of the offense.
So a prima facie case
has not been established.
It's just like that.
Okay. So
on the face of the a prima facie, so it's Latin, prima facie, on the face of the petition, has a case been made that will require that we call the chief justice to answer.
Because for the purpose of education, I'm also still learning. So does that mean that the chief justice would now have to file a response? No. So how would they be able to establish a prima facie case? Because if you've not heard from the chief justice, for instance, in response to the allegations which have been leveled against her, how do you then conclude
whether or not to establish
a prima facie? How do you then conclude that on the face of it, the prima facie case?
If the prosecution closes its case, you don't hear from the defendant before you invite the court to.
But it is a defendant that will file for submission of no case.
Because the prima facie case has not been made by the plaintiff. By the complainant.
But in that process, at least the defendant plays a role. In that process, the only reason why the defendant will be able to file a submission of no case is because they have been part of the process and they've come to the conclusion that the prosecution has not been able to, for instance, establish a case against the defendant. So at least they are part of the process. I'm learning. You are my mentor, you know that. But in this instance, the chief justice really is not part of the process.
No, not yet. Well, so that is going to be administrative. If the Council of State is of the view that the Chief Justice must appear before them to look at those issues or must file a response to those issues for them to determine the prima facie case, that is administrative. That is for them to determine. And I thank you for raising that matter. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it is the Council of State that will establish the prima facie case. So when they do establish that, and whichever way, whether they call the Chief Justice to file a response to the petition for them to establish whether there's a prima facie case or not, when they do establish that there is a case to answer, by the Chief Justice, do then advise the President to set up that committee Okay, a committee, a 5-member committee consisting of 2 justices of the Superior Court of Judicature and 3 persons, non-lawyers or non-MPs. Okay, so
they can even call Commissioner.
You can call you.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'll go to be part of it.
So they can, so they establish it. And immediately they come to the point that they are going to establish a committee to look into the petition. The Chief Justice has to be suspended. You can no longer perform the functions as Chief Justice until after the determination of the matter. So Article 14610 will then require that the Chief Justice be suspended. Okay, and then the committee will go into. Now, when the committee, you recall that I told you that in the 1969 Constitution, that committee is called a Judicial Tribunal. Okay, the 1992 Constitution calls it a committee, but the 1969 Constitution calls it a Judicial Tribunal. So the decision of that tribunal or that committee established under Article 1466 will be binding on the president. So whichever decision, whether to remove or not to remove the Chief Justice, is binding on the president, and all proceedings of the committee will be held in camera.
Okay. Before I bring in Mr. Langdon, it's important. I just want to get a proper overarching perspective of, the petition and all of the education that you've provided. So, for the benefit of our viewers, Honorable has mentioned Article 1466, which gives you the procedure. Has also mentioned Article 14610, which literally is saying that the Chief Justice shall not be removed from office except in accordance with the 1466 that Honorable has spoken about. So it is important that we get the distinction. But Honorable, from where you sit as a senior officer of the court, do you think there's any merit at all or any justification in the petition which has been sent to the president?
From where you sit as in the
so you see, and I like how Article 14610 puts it, because it says, if you read, it says that this provision emphasizes that the removal of the Chief Justice must strictly follow the procedures outlined in Article 1466, ensuring that the process is fair, transparent, and in accordance with the Constitution. Now, how do you determine fairness? How do you determine transparency? If, as at today, we don't know who the petitioners are, and I think it was one of the issues which was raised by many well-meaning Ghanaians when Nana Danko Akufo-Addo was petitioned for the removal of Charlotte Osei, because people raised questions as to who the petitioners were and what was contained in the petition. Do we want to revisit that, or we want to do things different, reset the whole process by at the very least, knowing who the petitioners are, knowing what is contained in the petition for the removal in the spirit of fairness?
So these matters have come before the courts. So there are judicial decisions on these matters.
Okay.
And I advise you to go look at Frank Ajay Chum against the Attorney General and Bright Akote. I think it is the 2005-2006 Supreme Court Ghana Law Report. And I think that the report,
Ajay Chum,
the Ajay is AJYEI.
Yeah.
And Chum, Chum, Ajay Chum, Frank Ajay Chum, against the Attorney General and Bright Akote. And that is the Supreme Court of 2005. It is reported in the 2005-2006 Supreme Court Ghana Law Report, and I think it's at page 732 or so. You go there, you might be able to understand the thinking, and the lead judgment was given by Dateba. So you go there, you will see why it is important not to encourage a public trial. So you see, because you are already going to subject the Chief Justice to court of public opinion, and so you go there and you'll see how Justice Barr handled the matter.
I think that was it about the empaneling of
No, the empaneling was the interlocutory the objection that was raised as to the power of the Chief Justice to empanel the court when she was a subject matter of a removal suit to remove her or suspend her from office. And the court said that, well, if and they said she was going to be a judge in her own cause and whatnot. The court said, oh, no, she's not going to be a judge in her own cause, because under the doctrine of necessity, it's only the Chief Justice who can empanel the courts. Okay, and that's the rule. She has to play it. And it doesn't lead to any conflict. It doesn't lead to, in fact, they even said relying on the dictum of Enim Yeboah, JSC, in an earlier case, I think the Bilson and Apalo, they said that, well, even the empaneling of a court is not a judicial action.
It's an administrative action.
It's an administrative, it's a ministerial action.
Yeah.
And so the principle of nemo judex, being a judge in your own cause, cannot even apply, because that's a ministerial duty, it's not a judicial duty. You can't be a judge in your own cause, means that you must be performing the duties that require you to take a decision, a decision that is binding on others. And so this one doesn't apply. So that that was they relied on the dictum of Enim Yeboah, GSC, in that matter. But that's a different thing. That's the empaneling. And there's a litany of cases in the Supreme Court that says that where they also cited the evidence decree, section 37 of the NRCD 323, and said that, and that is the presumption of regularity, that unless you can show that the Chief Justice did not empanel, did not exercise her powers regularly in accordance with her duty as Chief Justice, you need to give vent to the presumption that there's regularity in the way she's performed her duties. So this is not one of those things. It's not about empaneling. But I subscribe to the view that because the whole process ought to be in camera, and the decision of the committee can be either way, it does not accord with public interest to subject a Chief Justice who is going to be potentially going to be before a tribunal or a committee to fight a case that is requiring a removal in the public domain, for the public to take a decision even before the committee arrives at that decision. And if the public arrives at a decision different from the committee's decision, then our polarization as a country will deepen, and then there can be even accusations that the committee was biased and prejudicial. And so I like the way His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has gone about it. No comments, clear statements. I have received petitions, and in accordance, 3 petitions, and in accordance with Article 1466, I've forwarded them to the Council of State for consultations.
Interesting discussions here. Well, let me invite you to also share your views with us here on Pan-African Television, and let us know what you think. Honorable has given us a proper breakdown of the procedure relative to the removal of the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. London, what saith thou?
There's nothing else
useful to add.
No, I'm a justice of the Supreme Court. Nothing useful to add.
This is a purely legal and constitutional matter.
Right.
And my good brother here has totally exhausted the matter.
Right.
Pointed out, some of the issues I may have wanted to interrogate. He himself has explained it out completely. So you understand exactly where the framers were coming from, what some presidents have sought to cure by others trying to raise various issues that he has cited. So I think the matter has been completely addressed in a way that there's nothing we can say. But the thing is, from the political side, the man in the street, well, there are so many men in the street, all having different views. It will begin to be worrying that, and you know, he went as far back as Nkrumah, but I was just thinking about the recent past, just my memory, and I couldn't remember, apart from, I may be wrong, Chief Justice Georgina Wood. I don't remember if, apart from her, there was any other Chief Justice who was not petitioned against.
Yes. I remember about that.
You know,
Every Chief Justice, yeah.
and there were some of the one of which you mentioned, I will not refer to it, which in my opinion seemed frivolous, but it was a petition, and petitions come, and you know, it's beginning to become like a ritual. It's not just the office of the Chief Justice. Look, there'll be another petition against somebody else. And I know
the EC.
So you know,
I'm sure there are petitions waiting.
There are petitions in the queue. So you see, but yes, if you look at the political trend, it will not be surprising that maybe such a petition may be in the works, or some people may be drawing up a petition to present, having observed certain developments. So in some cases you can understand, but it is that trend which, you know, from observation, may not be very healthy. It may not be healthy. I just hope that, just as I'm saying that it is not, some petition that may come will not come as a breaking news to anybody, because the way some officers may have conducted themselves, one is not surprised that there may be such a development coming. But still, this incidence of petitions after change of government must not arise. First of all, the holders of those offices must demonstrate a certain level of, they must exhibit. Let the man out there see that yes, this person is doing their job to the, they are standing on their own right and doing their job. And it is important that people in those positions demonstrate that. They must show that. But if public begin to get a sense that that person seems to be kowtowing, seems to be condescending, seems to be, pandering to the powers that be, then rightfully or wrongfully, these things may happen. So it is also imperative on the part of those office holders during their tenure,
right,
to demonstrate a certain level that, and I believe that, you see, and like I said, I was reflecting, and this was purely my own reflections. I remember Chief Justice Georgina Wood. She established herself as somebody who was really no nonsense.
No nonsense.
And you see, and it's also to do with leadership. The president at the time to accommodate, he didn't show any sign of wanting to challenge her. He accommodated, President Kufuor. So I think it went hand in hand. I just hope the way President Mahama started, and it's not, yesterday he met with the Ghana Bar Association, and listening to what he said, he pointed out, I don't have any problem with the judiciary. At least he's put that on record, and said to them that, look, I expect the Bar Association to also be there to criticize me. You see, when you begin to send out such signals, you then also encourage others to also try and stand on their feet and do for the general good.
You've made a very important point. Perhaps we need to stay on there a little bit. You know, the fact that if you look at the Chief Justice who was perhaps not petitioned against is Justice Georgina Wood.
Yeah.
After her, almost all the other.
Yeah.
I don't know about Sophia Kufu. She's also.
I think she also was.
Yeah.
I think she also was. I can't remember.
No, I don't think so.
Yes. Come to think of, you see.
Yes. After her, that is when we began having.
She was petitioned against. And I think that petition didn't fly. Yeah. It's also because you see, like I always say,
I'm just trying to make the point that it appears we are becoming extremely partisan.
Yes.
As a nation.
Yes.
We're becoming extremely partisan to the point where if there's a ruling that doesn't go in your favor, then it means that the judge is for this person.
Yes.
If it goes in your favor, it means that the judge is for us. And then also because of how political actors and players are taking advantage of the seeming, if you like, polarization, relative to how we conduct our policies in Ghana, they are also taking advantage of it. So they will say that, we are in power, and so the judiciary is for us, sort of. And all the rulings that will come out from the various courts will be gravitating towards.
You see. There's a certain truth in that, but you see, what helps the situation is what yesterday the president said.
Right.
When the president himself comes out and tells the Ghana Bar Association, which from time immemorial has been a voice for has not always been the way people have expected, but in difficult times has been the voice of the people, especially in the military regimes. It is the Ghana Bar Association that stood up and said, no, this is wrong, you should go proper procedure, So if the president comes out and says, yes, I'm expecting criticisms from you, he himself has invited. So if he himself has said that, who are you, his supporter, or who are you, the foot soldier, to come and accuse if that criticism starts coming in the way of the president? You understand what I'm saying? So that kind of thing helps the situation. Yes, like we are agreeing after Chief Justice Georgina Wood, her successors had petitioned. Yes, but some of them too were frivolous. Some of them were actually established as frivolous petitions. You see, so those ones too were established. That as for this petition, in the case of the one who's the former Chief Justice, no, Sophia. Part of the conversation in those days was that she was appointed by a different government, and she was under another government. So therefore, is that grounds? That was useless. You see, so yes, there have been petitions, but some of the petitions to have been totally,
So you have to understand that the political establishment will want favorable judgments. And
it's not a political establishment. It is natural. If I go for a judge, I want a favorable judge. It's natural.
So I'm saying political because you have to look at the appointing authority of the judges. And so because they want favorable judgments, they want to put people they can rely on. Okay. So 1979, it happened. It was not a petition. The constitution had continued Apollo in office.
Yes.
But when
is it a Bilson case?
Yes. But the parliament said, "Oh, even though you are vetted already, you come that's you." Right? Was there a calculated attempt to disqualify him if he appeared before the committee? But what happens is that the country, and look at the one who did, both Chatuchikata and Akufo-Addo. But Chatuchikata researched the matter. Akufo-Addo advocated the matter. Okay.
Yeah.
So you need a country united on values.
Yes.
To move the conversation forward.
Exactly.
But we are not united on values.
We are not.
That's the problem.
Yes.
We are united on interests.
And we must begin to
bring back. That's the reset agenda.
Yes.
Values and principles. If you are united on that, it won't matter if myself and Atachi are on the same side trying to advocate a principle in court. Because that's a universal principle and that must apply. And when they apply, that's what Obama said, that we should invest in institutions and not in persons. But we're not. We're not. That's the problem. So again, then you have a state political appointment. Trump invoked an 18th century law,
the Alien Act.
An 18th century law, 17 something, 17 something.
Alien Act.
For the purposes of deporting Venezuelans.
Yes.
The judge said, no, you can't do that. And so you must hold on until the matter is determined. He didn't like it. So that is the nature of the executive. That's the nature of the executive. So when the court presided over by Ani Yabua and subsequently by Tokono started giving judgments against the NDC and the government, it attracted conversation.
Was questionable.
Conversation. And even the National Security Advisor said it was now a national security risk. Okay? So that's why we are saying that we must be united over values. I have, and my lecturer, Professor Koshiga, I gave my heart to him. He has always said, when we were doing the constitutional law, he said, look, the appointing processes of judges must not be what should contain us. Because immediately a judge is appointed, whether you are whether you are NDC or MP, you have sympathies for NDC, because judges vote. Whether you have sympathies for NDC or MPP, immediately you are appointed, your office is insulated against frivolous removals. Because that's why it is said that it must be on stated grounds. Stated grounds of misbehavior, of incompetence. So you must demonstrate that. In fact, if you say infirmity of mind, there will be a medical tribunal established to come to that conclusion. Determination. So you can't be removed. Why will you want to pander now to the executive after having you owe your appointer no obligation? Your obligation is to dispense justice.
Now, and again, I'm still staying with you. If you read some comments from people on social media, they cite some decisions of the court, particularly the one that has to do with the birth certificate matter. People say that, it beats every scintilla of logic that you would say that a birth certificate that gives you identity cannot be used.
Let us not even.
No, I'm just trying to tell you what people are saying on social media.
But that
as being part of the reasons why.
But that is, so I agree with you. So even the Death and Death Act provides therein that a birth certificate is prima facie evidence of citizenship.
Yes.
So I agree with that. But that is the Supreme Court. That is not Tokono's decision.
Yes, I agree with you.
So I also say that even
I see your point.
Yes. I also say that I criticize the Supreme Court as engaged in jurisprudence of convenience. Because the Supreme Court, before the Judicial case, had said that, you see, representation is so important that if you look at the Constitution, if a member of Parliament fails to go to Parliament for a certain number of days, 21 days or so, in a sitting, that member of Parliament shall lose his seat.
Right.
So because of representation, then so you can issue a temporary measure, an injunction, to restrain an elected member of Parliament from going to parliament.
Right.
That was a decision.
Right.
But in the Judicial case, what did they do?
Anyway, Mr. please proceed. Yeah, I said, well.
Like I was saying, it boils down.
There's a legal technicalities. A lot of people listening out there, men in this and women in the street, who are drawing their conclusions. Bottom line is how they feel.
Right.
How they feel.
Right.
So, in the past, all these things have gone on. Today, as it has come to a crunch, now the issues are being raised. But at the end of the day, when these things were being done, the people out there were feeling what they were feeling.
It's feeling. Yeah?
They're feeling what they're feeling. So, it comes down to the point I always insist on: leadership. You mentioned 2 American presidents. Obama, you mentioned his name in your submission. You mentioned another president's name, Trump, in the same submission. 2 different persons. The same Constitution of America, the same office, President of the Republic, of the America is what? The Union.
Yeah, the states.
So that is what it boils down to. Well, some time ago, a national security minister, in the exercise of his duty, made a public statement that, look, the way things are going is not helping our national security situation. It has considerations. I'm sure that was not the first time he had said that. I'm sure he had put it in many reports. For him to have made such a public statement means that the man was beginning to feel the heat of it. He sees he's on the ground. His boys are down there bringing him the reports. So he says, look, my friend, he is now sounding a warning out there that, look, and after that, there didn't appear to be any heed to that. So these are the consequences. And if when he had said that, the then president had made certain comments, or there have been certain situations that had occurred, I'm sure it should have brought that perception down a bit. Like I said, the example of what happened yesterday when the president met the Ghana Bar Association, and you listen to the discourse. So at the end of the day, the leadership makes that difference. Some of the other predictions that have come in the past, the public would even right away say, oh, this one is frivolous. So when at the end of the day it's thrown out, nobody is even concerned. But the situation we're talking about today, we are talking about 3 having been presented. In a report I was hearing, was it yesterday or the other day, I think the petitions are 4. Does it mean that they are still considering the as part of it, these are the realities of the situation. These are the realities, and we want to go to court and feel that there is justice. But when you have a case where Judge Equation, we saw what happened, then we have another case, and you see the behavior. The people standing outside, walking on the street and seeing the judges, the lawyers standing in front of the court building and watching and say, but these people, the last time the people were here, they were saying one thing. Today the people say, that's the man on the street.
That's not rule of law. Predictability of certainty.
And so the people holding those positions, they should sit up and realize that, look, they are not helping anybody.
What's up?
They are not helping anybody in the way they are going about things. They are not helping themselves. Demonstrate, do what is right. And it is easier when the leader has shown you the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of these people feel intimidated because the president is somebody who he doesn't take he doesn't accommodate a different opinion, like President Trump. Yeah. So if the president is somebody who as for this man there, hey, he's somebody who I can't work with this man, I can't listen to him. Like he talks about, then he puts all the judges and everybody. No. But if the president is somebody who says, you know something, I expect criticism from you, I am willing to, and if he gives out that signal, it helps. It is for you, the people exercising, to now begin to demonstrate that yes, you are independent. Because if you are independent, or at least you are doing what is proper, that properness is even in the interest of the man who is on top. Like I always say, President Kufuor will tell you that, hey, when he was president, some of the harshest criticism and critique he used to get was from his own government and his own party. But he will admit to you that it is what has helped him give such a lasting legacy and do such a good job. The good job that later the other people were criticizing him, that's the opposition. Later on, the same people came and hailed him and said, President Kufuor did a good job. So you see, at the end of the day, it is good. Partisanship does not help. Partisanship is not in the ultimate interest. It does not help you in the end. Allow people to tell you, even in your own life. They said you are wearing this crooked and somebody doesn't point out that, oh, master, this thing, thank you. That's all. It helps. But the way we have gone about things has not been useful. We must appreciate that we have done things that have not been in our interest, and try and set things straight. It is wrong. It's wrong. And then we spend a lot of time discussing. If we had just done things a little different, we won't be in this quagmire.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we've exhausted this topic. Let me just bring to the notice of viewers that the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, in the person of Dr. Johnson Pandete-Siama, has been summoned to Parliament over the collapse of banks in 2017, and I'm one person who really did not understand why we closed down those banks, and I will still not understand why we did that, and I believe that he will provide the necessary answers that we need. Possibly if we have to reinstate some of them, or we have to do that, because I think it's created a lot of unemployment in this country, and government could have salvaged most of the banks. So yeah, I believe that Dr. Siama, so far so good, very humble, very forward thinking, very forward looking, and very progressive. I respect him a lot. He's one of the very few people that I really respect. So yes, go and do the needful, sir. We need some of the banks back, especially GN Bank. When I was touring the country, every village I saw GN Bank office. So it was providing employment, and by extension creating opportunities for a lot of the young people in the country. So yeah, thank you. Kudos to Parliament even for inviting the man. Not so.
Well, the sad part is that the reasons that the MPP government gave to use 30 billion to close the banks, 30 billion. Now, Atofonso says it's not 25 billion. It's not 30, and even there is still some money to be paid.
Oh, God of mercy.
The reason why they gave for closing those banks, the banks that are existing now are even now in a dire situation than before. So, well, I don't know what I got in the Ghanaian palace, whether we have gone or we have come.
I think Dr. Siama will be able to reverse those patriotic decisions.
Well, I hope that it's good Parliament has invited him to come and to give an explanation as to the thinking behind those decisions, what the situation was, and the actions taken in addressing those, in curing that situation. It will help us all get a proper perspective of what it was. Because banks having problems is not something that is completely unheard of. It happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are various reasons. Bad management, poor decision making, weak internal controls, even
poor financial projections. I mean,
so many.
That's a good bad decisions.
So all these things come into play, And depending on what the details, what the actual issues are, and it's never one decision, one issue. It's a multiplicity of issues, all of various, degrees of, impact. And also, for a number of banks that will be in distress, they will not all be in the same exact situation. Everybody's situation might be entirely different. And it is for the governing authority to work with the central bank and the Ministry of Finance to take the best national interests. You're looking at the overall economy, bottom line, overall economy, not just the bank balances of those banks or their financial positions. It goes beyond that. You are looking at people's employment, the employment of those being supported by the banks, even the situation of those who have liabilities to the bank. You have to look at all that and see how the bank itself is supported, and then take a decision, tailor it for every bank situation. But it appears as though it was quite sweeping. One broom was used to sweep all these banks. And also in the political landscape, Nigeria, some years ago they had about how many thousand different banks. The government said no. They allowed many of the banks to begin to merge and go in for the best level human resource to run their banks. Today Nigerian banks are world-class banks.
International banks.
World-class.
And all of those
because they handle the similar situation differently. And that is what leadership does. One problem, two different people take two different decisions. It shows you the difference in the level of leadership of the two individuals. That is what it is.
That's it.
So the governor of the Bank of Ghana should come and tell us exactly what happened, and it should not be just a simple, we must go into it. What steps were some people trying to make out of the counter steps and things? Then we can begin to apportion the blame properly if there's blame to be apportioned.
But remember, you see, why are the decisions different? Were Nigerians playing by a rule book called Ajapa?
No. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah, so they were not playing by a rule book. In Ghana, we had a rule book. They will collapse all. Take control of the financial sector of the economy, and you can only do that when you collapse some banks, and then you take control. So that was the rule book. I've read Obama's book when he won the elections. America was in dire financial crisis, the meltdown. You remember? That is how quantitative easing came. That look, he recruited the best to handle the situation, and America printed trillions of dollars to salvage the situation because of what you have said, the levels of employment that they provided, the people who were going to crash because their mortgages were going to be taken, and all those things. And today America is stronger. It's stronger. Now, you mentioned transparency. If you go to the 2023 State of the Nation address by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, he gives a different figure for the exercise, how the exercise costs the cleanup. Bawumia gave a different figure when he was confronted. Ofurata gave a different figure. Today, Atufosun is giving us a different figure. Transparency requires that we all are let into knowing how much this country spent in the banking sector cleanup. And if people had motives other than the motive to salvage the economy, they should be held accountable for that.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable. We still have some time left, and so I want us to look at the other issue, very, very important issue. Yeah, my producers, you are now putting the topic up when we have finished discussing it. I don't know why people are so slow. Anyway, there's a very interesting. We woke up one morning to a press conference, or the afternoon, to a press conference held by the Attorney General. This is a novelty, where you have Attorney General organizing press conferences to explain to us what he's doing, what his office is investigating, how far they have come in relation to the investigation, and the persons who are alleged to have been involved in whatever investigation they are conducting. It's a novelty. I've never seen it happen before. And I think it's also very good because accountability requires fairness, transparency. And so if the various state agencies or parastatals are explaining to us what they are involved in, I think that it gives us an opportunity to assess, their performance. Now, one of the press conferences which was held by the Attorney General was in relation to a certain Edubuahine who is alleged to have, through his office, made so much money, bought so many properties, and had withdrawn, I think, about $7 million or so. The minority, particularly one Vincent Asafwa, is telling the party lawmakers, let the man carry his own cross, because the amount of money that we are mentioning are very huge. But this is beyond this was an issue that was raised by the attorney of Mr. Edubuahine in response to the press conference that was held, and in response to how his client was treated, particularly according to him by Iyoko and then the AG. I've read it, but Honorable, are we not passing judgment before putting the alleged suspects in court, putting them before court for proper prosecution to begin? Are we not passing judgment?
When the Ayine was conducting his press conference, he said he was a judge.
No, he didn't say that.
Yeah, so you were passing. You must be a judge to pass the judgment.
So what was he doing then?
He was just briefing the public. I mean, you should understand this, and it's a novelty, but it's good. It's good. You know what it does? I'm telling you, those in office presently,
they'll be scared.
Will be scared, because if they conduct themselves in a similar manner, Ayine has told them, he's giving them notice that he'll go after them. Even if Ayine doesn't go after them, and a different government comes, know that the same fate will befall them. So it's good. So if you are talking about naming and shaming, it's good. So I agree with you entirely that this is the first time the Attorney General is carrying us along in Ghana.
Yep.
But I've listened to many Attorney Generals from many jurisdictions. As a lawyer, you must be interested in how the Attorney Generals in various jurisdictions work. And one of my pastimes is just Google the Attorney General, how they address matters of this nature. So in other jurisdictions, they will say, well, Attorney General, so in Ghana, let me use the Ghanaian context. So before the election, the depths of decay to which Ghana has sunk had become an issue. You were on the campaign platform, and you knew exactly what you were communicating to the people. That the situation was so bad that we needed to salvage this country. In the words of Mustafa, we needed to rescue this country. Mustafa Hamid, that's what he said.
Wallahi.
We needed to rescue this country. Now, the people of Ghana were so appalled. I've always said, Mr. London, people forget that the 57.7% of the votes were not exclusively and entirely NDC. There were people in the MPP who were so disgusted with what was happening that they decided that to salvage the situation, they needed to get the government out. And to get the government out, they needed an overwhelming victory for the NDC.
Yeah.
So this was a verdict on Nana Akufo-Addo's government. But because the situation was so pervasive, the NDC said, look, we're going to recover all loot. Found expression in the manifesto of the NDC. Now, when that thing found expression in the manifesto of the NDC, nobody raised an issue. People were even joking with it. We should recover all loot. They didn't know that was a serious statement of intent. They didn't know. That was very serious. Now, so immediately after the elections and the consequent upon the declaration of the results by the Electoral Commission, the first act of the president, John Dramani Mahama, as president-elect, was to form a committee, the oral committee, and they went round to gather evidence for him. Did you know that Adubuahi was engaged in this activity?
I have no idea.
No idea. Even when he was arrested, nobody knew why he was arrested.
Yeah.
Nobody. Until I just spoke. Nobody. I don't know that other people who knew, except those who were told, those who were supposed to know, entitled to know. I don't know. So to deal with speculation on why Adubuahi was arrested, you needed to let the Ghanaians know what motivated the arrest of Adubuahi. Two, everywhere that I've listened to Attorney General, they say in matters of this nature. So 2 or 3 days ago, you would have heard that we picked so and so. Or so and so has become a subject matter of interest, and we have been investigating people connected with this offense, this alleged offense that have been committed in the course of the performance of the duties of XYZ. And we have uncovered so and so and so and so. Investigations are still ongoing. When the investigations are completed, we will arraign them before the courts. But the situation is so serious that we have to take certain measures. We will continue to detain them or release them on bail. And I've heard a lot of Attorney General say this in other jurisdictions. And that was what Ayini was doing. Ayini was just carrying us on, telling us, look, this person was arrested because he's a person of interest. That our investigations have revealed that while in office, he engaged in these activities. Evidence shows that the monies that were earmarked for the purchase of certain equipment were inflated or laundered, and so that he had opened accounts similar to the accounts of the institution to perfect the criminal intent of moving monies from the national account into a private account, and that the total amount of money involved is 39-point-something million Ghana cedis. Now, we think that this amount of money was laundered into real estate. So this is just the evidence that the facts that he's bringing out, and these are still allegations, but they believe that they are drawing the connections. Okay, that's what they believe. They are drawing the connections, and they are seeing that he was able to do that because he had accounts in 3 different banks, and at points in time you could see withdrawals of up to 7 million Ghana cedis a day. Investigation will have to continue because I have said, and listening to the Ayine, I have said that Mr. Philip London, National Signals Bureau, do we have a board? Do you have a board?
I don't know about that. All I know is that they are under the BNI.
Yes, they are under the National Security.
Yeah.
But do we have a board?
I don't think they have a board.
So how many people sat down to make the decision? Yeah. What due diligence was done for arriving at that decision to purchase that spyware? What due diligence was done? Was he the only signatory to the account of the national signals? How come that when he was withdrawing such huge amounts of money from the banks, the Financial Intelligence Center did not flag the activity? Or the banks, when he was moving these monies from the
one account to the
another, why is it that he didn't come within the radar of the banks as recording it as suspected activities and flagging those transactions for the investigation of the National Intelligence Center? So there are many questions to answer. There are many questions. But like I said from the beginning, I'm ending on the note that Ayine should continue. We want to know. There should be a balance between the right to know and the protection of the innocence, of constitutional presumption of innocence of the accused persons, and to ensure that even though we want to know, we should be mindful not to create an impression that we have already prejudged the matter. All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. London.
Yes. What about you doing?
It's acting like Trump. Are you wearing a mask?
The whole issue doesn't make sense. How can state funds of that volume, $7 million, one man just appears to have just absolute control?
Doesn't make sense.
He just opens the account, registers a company with virtually the same, very similar name, so he just transfers the money and make it appear as though the whole thing sounds just, it smells too bad. It's too bad. The Attorney General just stated facts as investigations had established. He has not pronounced judgment on anybody. So once those facts have come out, it is for the man will have his day to defend himself. But the facts as presented don't look good at all. Don't look good. And a lot of the actions that were conducted defy fundamental corporate governance and things like that. I mean, can one person have that level of control over state money and just dispense it like that? No recourse to any other persons in the establishment? No financial subordinates, no auditors, no board, no deputy? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, and what I don't understand is I see sometimes we just give jobs to the boys for people just occupy positions. You have public interest and what do you call it? Sorry, not public interest. This state enterprises, SIGA. What was SIGA doing? What was SIGA doing? How can such a situation exist? And when you go into the assemblies, it's horrible. It is horrible. You know, we have to seriously, really look at some of these things again. I mean, how can that happen? It just defies, and these instances are happening. I mean, this one, I think the matter is a plain, simple matter, is clear cut. There's nothing much to say about it. But You know, it's not good at all. And these are the things that when people hear, they begin to question politicians in general and appointees as a whole. How can the situation that is so? Wasn't there any audit going on? Was it? I mean, this thing went on for years. You know, it was never flagged at any point. No. And there must be an effort to go into some of these issues. I understand my friend Honorable Valerie is in charge of governance and the president's office. They should be looking at these things. They should be looking at these things. She's another very strong. We're talking about Georgina Wood. Another woman is Valerie. Strong woman. They should they should look into these things, you know, and set things right. I mean, it's not like it's crazy. And there are many of such instances. Look at national service. You know, it's horrible. And somebody has been silenced from talking. If she had continued talking, we would have been here more. But I know that silence is temporary. She will talk more again. No political party can stop people from talking. And she is another strong woman.
Yeah.
She will talk. You know, because sometimes certain things are unconscionable. Yes, everybody. Me, if I get money, I like. I will not lie you. Everybody gets money, they like it. But certain things, and of course, if you do a good job, it is possible someone say, oh, you know, the other day I was in church, and a friend of mine, he's retired. He used to work with one of the banks. He's retired, and there was there had been a wedding the day before, so the couple came for blessing. So a lot of people came to church that day, and this friend of mine, somebody accosted him. He said, "Oh, how are you with this?" And he said, "Oh, do you remember some years ago you did this for me?" He said, "That's what you." I said, "Oh, have you forgotten me?" He said, "Oh, he couldn't remember the man." So later on, before the day was out, the man came and gave him some money. He said, "Oh, I'm surprised you can't remember me. You did this one." I said, "That's all." So he was telling me. He said, I said, "You know, this man came." I said, "That's how it is. You just did it for the man. You were doing your job. There was nothing. But this man has been so grateful. He feels he has never had an opportunity to say thank you to you. So he saw you today in church and just thought he could just give you this token." And this friend of mine was so grateful. He said, "Hey, is that what I say? Yes. That is life. You don't have to go and put your hand inside money and steal it. That one, if you are caught, you have to be, you know." But the things that are coming out and the lifestyles that are accompanying some of these things, I mean, at the end of the day, how much food can you eat? I mean, how many cars can you drive? You know, but these things are going on, and it's like, I always say, it's the leadership. If the leadership gives a warning, that my friend, look, and I always, President Kufuor, I always stand up for him. People will tell you that when Kojo Mpiani was chief of staff, you dare not. But it got to a time when there was just absolute lax. And when there's that lax, it spills over. Appointees, people see that people are just dropping money left and right, so they just start dropping money left and right. That is the case of this Idiwahin's matter. You know, you think if the situation was such that there is a sense that leadership will not tolerate this type of thing, he would have tried. He wouldn't have. But if the leadership starts by giving a lot of money, as for me, then when he comes, he does worse. Then when then, you know. So I think that, yes, I've heard people say about how the Attorney General situation might be prejudicing the legal process that would eventually follow. But I think it is also good that he states the facts.
Right.
He states the facts. He has the way he has done it. You know, and yes, when he points these things out, it is good for the system. Like you said, even current appointees, everybody, and at the end of the day, you will see somebody who was a former appointee living a simple, common life. He still has his dignity. He's, he's
not himself.
I just ask myself, to the procurement authority.
Oh,
the national security, they are not subject to the procurement laws of
those ones. Yeah, well, let's read a few messages.
The way the procurement department was collapsed, and then the people just take advantage.
Good morning to Pan-African Television. Those defending Adubuahin and his wife are like them. Adubuahin and his wife must be properly scrutinized, and if they are found culpable, they must face the full rigors of the law. Kwame, go to the remote areas of Ghana. Human beings are battling with dirty water and animals. No social amenities there too, and they have stolen the nation's money for their own benefit. Such monies can develop rural areas. From Tola. Good morning to you, Kwame. My regards to my big brother, Honorable Inus Afuseni. I actually support the petition to remove the Chief Justice. Thank you. By Muntari Sankpagola in Central Gonja District. This one says, good morning to you, Kwame. The laws of our land needs to be easy to understand, and its application must be consistent. The inconsistencies in the interpretation of our laws by the Supreme Court have just been so unacceptable. I will be happy if the leader of the unanimous FC is removed. Honorable Inus Afuseni Dasba. Why don't you implement those so-called systems that makes those countries you are trying to send them to attractive, so they stay and make it like you claim you did yourself? Please, elders, stop worsening the lives of the innocent youth. I have lived outside and I can boldly say you, those in power, are not creating enough enabling environment for the youth. Do that and we will all stay in Ghana. Okay. This one says, on this day a national hero who wasn't recognized goes home to eternal rest in the bosom of the Lord. Comrade Dr. David Percy, fare thee well till we meet at Jesus' feet. Rest in perfect peace. Then how do I get in touch in order to be part of this program? Okay, you're talking about Dr. Percy. Okay, all right, let me read some WhatsApp messages and then we'll call it. Tell Mr. Langdon that he was excellent last week on the show and today too. KOD, please don't forget today. Yes, there's this gentleman who really wants to speak to you.
Me?
Yeah, so maybe after the show. Eben, he called me several times. He wanted to talk to you. My party and DC should set up and put their feet on the ground. They should not listen to Afeni Marken and his group. James K. Sarba sent in this one. Alhaji Hamza says, good morning to you, my brother. In my humble opinion, it's welcoming news to hear the removal of the e-levy and other nuisance taxes. What a relief to the good people of this country. There's a repeat program, so don't hurry me. Let me read messages. Thank you. This was a campaign promise made by President Mahama and the NDC, and it has been fulfilled, and we are so grateful to President Mahama. Alhaji Hamza and Payfam sent in this one. All right, Honorable, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Landon, thank you very much for your time. Thank you to you for spending your quality morning with me here on Pan-African Television. My name is Kwame Sudan, so I'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.